Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can change the course of our lives forever. Today's story is about Jack Thompson, a hard-working single father who gave up his first-class seat to a pregnant woman on a crowded flight. What Jack didn't realize was that this simple gesture would lead to an unexpected connection with someone who could transform his struggling life. This is a story of kindness, fate, and how good deeds can come back to you in ways you'd never imagine. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The early morning bustle of Denver International Airport was in full swing as Jack Thompson rushed through security, his carry-on bag in one hand and a coffee in the other. The large departure board showed his flight to New York was still on time, but boarding had already begun. Jack checked his watch and quickened his pace. He couldn't afford to miss this flight. This business meeting could be his last chance to save his small construction company. At 38, Jack's life had become a complex juggling act. After his wife Miranda passed away from cancer 3 years ago, he'd been raising their 10-year-old daughter Lily on his own. The past year had been especially challenging as his once thriving construction business faced one setback after another. Major projects fell through, costs skyrocketed, and now his company was teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. This meeting in New York with Horizon Developments represented a lifeline, a potential contract that could keep his business afloat and ensure his employees could keep their jobs. Jack had spent his remaining savings on a first-class ticket, hoping the extra comfort would help him arrive refreshed and ready to make his pitch. Final boarding call for flight AA 1842 to New York. LaGuardia. The announcement echoed through the terminal as Jack approached the gate, slightly out of breath. "You made it just in time, sir," the gate agent said, scanning his boarding pass. "We're about to close the doors." Jack nodded gratefully and made his way down the jet bridge. As he stepped onto the plane, the flight attendant directed him to his seat in the first-class cabin, 1A, a window seat at the very front. He settled in, placing his laptop bag under the seat in front of him. Jack hadn't splurged on first class in years, but today it felt necessary. He needed to review his presentation one more time and maybe even get a short nap before landing. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily on his shoulders. This wasn't just about him. It was about Lily's future and the 15 employees who depended on him for their livelihoods. Just as the flight attendants were preparing to close the aircraft door, there was a commotion at the entrance. A visibly pregnant woman, perhaps 7 or 8 months along, was being escorted onto the plane by a flight attendant. She appeared flustered and uncomfortable. "I'm so sorry for the delay," the woman was saying. "My doctor's appointment ran late, and then the security line was endless." "It's not a problem, Ms. Reynolds," the flight attendant assured her. "We still have a seat for you in economy, though it's in the middle row toward the back." Jack watched as the woman's face fell slightly. She was professionally dressed in a tailored maternity dress and blazer, with her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun. Despite her composed demeanor, he could see the fatigue in her eyes. "I understand," she replied, trying to mask her disappointment. "I should have arrived earlier." As the pregnant woman started to move toward the economy section, Jack remembered how difficult travel had been for Miranda during her pregnancy with Lily. Before he could second-guess himself, he was on his feet. "Excuse me," he called out. "Ma'am, you can have my seat." Both the woman and flight attendant turned to look at him. "Sir?" the flight attendant questioned. "I'd like to give my seat to her," Jack clarified, gesturing to his first-class seat. "I can take the economy seat instead." The pregnant woman's eyes widened. "Oh no, I couldn't possibly." "Please, I insist," Jack said with a smile. "You'll be much more comfortable up here, especially on a 3-hour flight. I'm Jack Thompson, by the way." The woman studied him for a moment, seeming to assess his sincerity. "I'm Catherine Reynolds," she finally replied. "Are you sure about this? First-class seats aren't cheap." Jack nodded. "Completely sure. I'm just going to be working on my laptop anyway." He didn't mention that this seat had cost nearly a month's worth of groceries, or that it might be the last luxury he could afford for a long while. Catherine's expression softened. "Thank you, Mr. Thompson. That's incredibly kind of you." The flight attendant quickly arranged the seat swap, and Jack gathered his belongings. As he moved past Catherine to head toward the back of the plane, she touched his arm lightly. "I won't forget this," she said simply. Jack just smiled and continued toward his new seat, squeezing down the narrow aisle of the economy section until he reached 28E, a middle seat between two rather large passengers. He stowed his bag and squeezed in, immediately feeling his knees press against the seat in front of him. So much for reviewing his presentation in comfort. Still, he didn't regret his decision. His father had raised him to believe that character was defined by the choices you make when no one important is watching. It was a principle he was determined to pass on to Lily. As the plane took off, Jack tried to focus on his upcoming meeting. Horizon Developments was one of the largest commercial real estate companies on the East Coast, and landing this contract to renovate their office buildings in Denver would keep Thompson Construction afloat for at least another year. He opened his laptop, balancing it awkwardly on the narrow tray table, and began reviewing his slides one more time. Halfway through the flight, Jack felt a tap on his shoulder. He looked up to see one of the flight attendants. "Mr. Thompson, Ms. Reynolds would like to speak with you. Would you mind coming to the first-class cabin for a moment?" Puzzled, Jack followed the flight attendant to the front of the plane. Catherine was sitting comfortably in his former seat, a sparkling water in the cup holder beside her. "Mr. Thompson," she greeted him, "I wanted to thank you again and ask what brings you to New York." "Just a business meeting," Jack replied, conscious of the curious glances from other first-class passengers. "I own a small construction company in Denver, and I'm pitching for a new contract." "Construction?" Catherine's interest seemed piqued. "What kind of projects do you typically handle?" "Commercial renovations mostly, office buildings, retail spaces. We specialize in eco-friendly retrofitting of older structures," Jack explained, surprised by her interest. "My company, Thompson Construction, has been around for 12 years now." Catherine nodded thoughtfully. "That sounds fascinating. I'd love to hear more, but I don't want to keep you from your work." She handed him a business card. "Perhaps we could continue this conversation in New York. My office is in Midtown." Jack glanced at the card. Catherine Reynolds, CEO, Skyline Airlines. His eyes widened slightly as he realized he'd given up his first-class seat to the head of the very airline they were flying on. "You're the CEO of Skyline?" he asked, unable to hide his surprise. Catherine smiled. "One of the perks is usually a guaranteed first-class seat, but today I was running late and didn't have time to pull rank." She paused. "The fact that you had no idea who I was makes your gesture even more impressive, Mr. Thompson." Jack felt his cheeks warm slightly. "Please, call me Jack, and anyone would have done the same." "We both know that's not true," Catherine replied. "So, would you be willing to meet for coffee after we land? Around 2 p.m.? There's a cafe near my office called The Daily Grind." Jack hesitated, checking his watch. His meeting with Horizon was scheduled for 4 p.m., which would give him just enough time. "I'd like that," he said finally. "Excellent," Catherine said. "I'll see you then." Back in his cramped economy seat, Jack couldn't help wondering about this unexpected turn of events. Was Catherine just being polite, or did she have some other reason for wanting to meet? Either way, he had more pressing concerns, like how to convince Horizon Developments that his small company could handle their multi-million-dollar renovation project. The plane landed at LaGuardia on time, and Jack waited patiently as the first-class passengers disembarked. Catherine nodded to him as she passed, a subtle reminder of their planned meeting. Once off the plane, Jack headed straight for the men's room to freshen up, changing from his travel clothes into the suit he'd carefully packed in his carry-on. Looking at himself in the mirror, he straightened his tie and took a deep breath. The dark circles under his eyes betrayed the many sleepless nights he'd spent worrying about the business, about Lily, about the future. He splashed cold water on his face and tried to focus, one step at a time. First, coffee with Catherine Reynolds. Then the meeting that could save everything he'd worked for. The Daily Grind was a cozy cafe tucked between towering midtown skyscrapers. Jack arrived 15 minutes early, ordered a black coffee, and found a quiet table near the window. He was reviewing his notes one last time when Catherine walked in. She spotted him immediately and made her way over, drawing curious glances from other patrons. Even in a city filled with powerful people, Catherine had a commanding presence. She changed into a different outfit, a stylish maternity dress that complemented her professional demeanor while accommodating her growing baby bump. "Jack, I'm glad you could make it," she said, sliding into the seat across from him. "Thank you for the invitation," Jack replied, "though I'm still not sure why the CEO of an airline wants to have coffee with me. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story." Catherine laughed lightly. "Straight to the point, I see. I appreciate that." She ordered a decaf latte from the approaching server before continuing. "I'm curious about your construction company. You mentioned eco-friendly retrofitting." Jack nodded, slipping into the familiar territory of his business pitch. Thompson Construction specializes in taking existing commercial structures and renovating them to meet modern environmental standards. We reduce energy consumption by an average of 40%, while preserving the original architectural elements that give buildings their character. "And how's business?" Catherine asked, her gaze direct and assessing. Jack hesitated. In any other circumstance, he would have offered reassurances about the company's stability. But something about Catherine's directness made him respond in kind. "Honestly, we're struggling. The pandemic hit us hard, supply chain issues drove up our costs, and several major projects fell through last year. That's why I'm in New York. I'm meeting with Horizon Developments this afternoon to pitch for a contract that could keep us afloat." Catherine's expression remained neutral, but her eyes softened slightly. "I appreciate your honesty, Jack. Tell me about your team." For the next 20 minutes, Jack found himself describing his 15 employees, the core group that had stayed with him through the hardest times. He told her about Mike, his foreman who'd been with him since day one, about Sophia, the brilliant young architect who'd turned down offers from larger firms to stay with Thompson Construction, about Leo, the master carpenter whose craftsmanship was unmatched in the Denver area. "They're like family," Jack concluded. "That's why I'm fighting so hard to keep the business going. It's not just about me or even my daughter Lily. It's about all the families that depend on Thompson Construction." Catherine nodded slowly, her latte untouched. "And what would you do if you could expand? If money wasn't the immediate concern?" Jack hadn't allowed himself to think that way in months, but the question ignited a spark of the passion that had driven him to start his company in the first place. "We'd take on larger projects, for one thing. I've had to turn down some incredible opportunities because we didn't have the capital to handle the upfront costs. And I'd implement this apprenticeship program I've been designing, partnering with local community colleges to train the next generation of skilled tradespeople." He stopped himself, embarrassed by his enthusiasm. "Sorry, I got carried away. Don't apologize," Catherine said. "Passion is essential in business. It's what gets us through the difficult times." She checked her watch. "I should let you go. You don't want to be late for your meeting with Horizon." She reached into her bag and pulled out another business card, this one with a personal cell phone number written on the back. "Call me tomorrow, regardless of how the meeting goes. I might have a proposition for you." Jack took the card, puzzled but intrigued. "I will. Thank you for your time, Ms. Reynolds." "Catherine, please," she corrected him, standing carefully. "And thank you again for the seat. Some things are worth more than money, Jack. Not everyone remembers that." As Catherine left the cafe, Jack sat for a moment, turning her card over in his fingers. What had just happened? Was this simply a thank you coffee or something more? Either way, he couldn't afford to dwell on it now. He had 20 minutes to get to his meeting with Horizon Developments. The Horizon headquarters occupied the top floors of a sleek glass tower on Madison Avenue. Jack presented his ID at the security desk and was directed to the 47th floor. As the elevator ascended, he tried to quell the anxiety rising in his chest. Everything was riding on this presentation. The elevator doors opened to reveal a reception area with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of the Manhattan skyline. A polished receptionist greeted him and escorted him to a large conference room where 3 executives in expensive suits were waiting. "Mr. Thompson, welcome," the oldest of the 3 men said, extending his hand. "I'm Richard Donovan, VP of Operations at Horizon. These are my colleagues, Mark Chen from Finance and Sarah Williams from Sustainability." Jack shook hands with each of them, noting the cool assessment in their eyes. He was clearly being sized up, and he suspected his modest suit and worn leather briefcase were already working against him. "Thank you for meeting with me," Jack said, setting up his laptop. "I've prepared a presentation on how Thompson Construction can fulfill your renovation needs for the Denver properties." For the next 45 minutes, Jack gave everything he had to the presentation. He outlined his company's approach to sustainable renovation, showed before and after photos of their most impressive projects, and detailed the cost savings Horizon could expect in the long run. He answered technical questions from Mark, sustainability, concerns from Sarah, and operational queries from Richard. When he finished, there was a moment of silence as the executives exchanged glances. "Your portfolio is impressive, Mr. Thompson," Richard finally said, "but we have concerns about your company's capacity to handle a project of this scale." Jack had anticipated this objection. "We've successfully completed renovations of similar size for Boulder Tech Park and the Denver Arts Complex. What specific concerns do you have?" Mark Chen cleared his throat. "To be blunt, Mr. Thompson, we've done our due diligence. Thompson Construction has been losing money for the past 3 quarters. Your line of credit is nearly maxed out, and you've had to reduce your workforce by almost 30% in the last year." Jack felt his stomach drop. They'd researched his company's financial situation thoroughly, something he should have expected but hadn't prepared for. "Financial challenges are temporary," Jack countered, fighting to keep his voice steady. "The quality of our work and our commitment to timeline and budget have never wavered." Sarah Williams spoke up. "We don't doubt your commitment or your expertise, Mr. Thompson, but this is a $12 million project with tight deadlines. We can't afford delays or complications that might arise if your company faces further difficulties." The message was clear. Thompson Construction was too risky a bet. Jack spent another 15 minutes trying to address their concerns, offering to provide additional references and even suggesting a phased approach to the project, but he could see their minds were made up. "We appreciate your time, Mr. Thompson," Richard said, standing to signal the end of the meeting. "We'll be in touch once we've made our decision," but Jack knew there would be no call. As he packed up his materials, he felt a hollow sensation in his chest. This had been his last real hope. Without this contract, he would have to lay off more workers, maybe even close the business entirely. How would he tell his team? What would he say to Lily about why Daddy had to sell their house? As he left the Horizon building and stepped onto the busy sidewalk, Jack checked his phone. There was a text message from his sister Emma, who was watching Lily while he was in New York. "How did the meeting go? Lily wants to know if you'll be home for her science fair tomorrow." Jack stared at the message, his throat tight. He'd promised Lily he wouldn't miss her science fair this time. She'd worked for weeks on her project about renewable energy sources, inspired by her dad's work, and her excitement had been the one bright spot in their increasingly stressful lives. He started typing a response, then stopped and slipped the phone back into his pocket. He couldn't bring himself to admit defeat just yet, not even to Emma. Instead, he began walking, with no particular destination in mind, trying to clear his head and figure out what to do next. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows between the skyscrapers as Jack found himself in Bryant Park. He sat on a bench, watching people hurry past, everyone with somewhere to go, something important to do. For the first time since Miranda's death, he felt truly lost. His phone buzzed again. This time it was a number he didn't recognize. He answered cautiously. Jack Thompson speaking. "Jack, it's Catherine Reynolds." Her voice was clear and businesslike. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." "No," Jack said, surprising himself with a short laugh. "Nothing important at all." There was a pause. "Your meeting with Horizon didn't go well, did it?" "That obvious, huh?" Jack rubbed his forehead. "They did their homework. They know my company is struggling and they're not willing to take the risk." "I see." Catherine's tone gave nothing away. "Jack, I'd like to meet with you again, not at a cafe this time. Can you come to the Skyline?" "Corporate offices. They're on Park Avenue, about 15 minutes from where you are now," Jack frowned. "How do you know where I am?" Catherine chuckled. "I don't. But most people end up in either Bryant Park or Madison Square after a disappointing meeting in Midtown. It's where I used to go to lick my wounds in my early days." Despite everything, Jack smiled. "Bryant Park, you're good." "I've been in business a long time," Catherine replied. "So, can you come? I promise it will be worth your while." Jack looked around at the park, at the people living their normal lives, unaware that his was falling apart. What did he have to lose? "Text me the address. I'll be there in 20 minutes. The Skyline Airlines corporate headquarters occupied several floors of a prestigious Park Avenue building. The lobby was sleek and modern, with the company's distinctive blue and silver logo prominently displayed behind the reception desk. Jack gave his name to the receptionist and was immediately escorted to a private elevator. "Ms. Reynolds is expecting you," the receptionist explained as she used a key card to access the executive floor. "This elevator will take you directly to her office." The elevator doors opened to reveal a tastefully appointed reception area where an efficient-looking assistant greeted him. "Mr. Thompson, Ms. Reynolds is on a call, but asked me to show you in right away. Can I get you anything? Water? Coffee?" "Water would be great, thank you," Jack replied, suddenly aware of how thirsty he was. The assistant led him through a set of double doors into a corner office with panoramic views of the Manhattan skyline. Catherine was seated behind a large desk, phone to her ear, but she gestured for Jack to take a seat in one of the leather chairs facing her. "Yes, Bill, I understand the concerns, but my decision is final," she was saying, her tone firm but not unkind. "We'll discuss the details at tomorrow's board meeting. Thank you." She hung up and turned her full attention to Jack. "I appreciate you coming on such short notice," she said, rising carefully from her chair to shake his hand, "especially after what sounds like a difficult meeting. To be honest, I'm not sure why I'm here," Jack admitted as they both sat down. "I appreciate the kindness you've shown me, but—" Catherine held up a hand to stop him. "This isn't about kindness, Jack. It's about business." She opened a folder on her desk. "Skyline Airlines has recently acquired a portfolio of commercial properties across the country, including 7 buildings in the Denver metropolitan area. These buildings will serve as our regional offices, training facilities, and customer service centers as we expand our domestic operations." Jack listened, not quite understanding where this was going. "All of these buildings require extensive renovation to meet our corporate standards and sustainability goals," Catherine continued. "Based on what you've told me about Thompson Construction and what I've learned in the few hours since we met," she gestured to the folder, which Jack now realized contained information about his company, I believe you could be the right contractor for this job." Jack stared at her, momentarily speechless. "You're offering me a contract? Just like that?" Catherine smiled. "Not just like that. I've done my homework too, Jack. Your company's financial struggles are recent, but your reputation for quality work and ethical business practices goes back years. You've never had a lawsuit. Your customer satisfaction ratings are exceptional, and your employees stay with you despite being offered higher salaries elsewhere." She paused. "That tells me everything I need to know about the kind of businessman and the kind of person you are." Jack's mind was racing. "What kind of renovations are we talking about?" "Comprehensive retrofitting of all 7 properties, with a focus on energy efficiency and workspace optimization. The initial contract would be for approximately $20 million, with the potential for additional work as we acquire more properties." The figure made Jack's head spin. $20 million would not only save his company, but allow for the expansion he'd only dreamed about. "Why me?" he asked finally. "You could hire any major construction firm in the country." Catherine leaned back in her chair, resting her hands on her abdomen in a protective gesture that reminded Jack of Miranda during her pregnancy. "When I was starting Skyline 15 years ago, nobody would take a chance on a female-led airline. I was told repeatedly that I didn't have the experience, the connections, or the capital to succeed." Her expression hardened at the memory. "One investor told me to come back when I had a husband to run the business side of things." She smiled slightly. "Obviously, I proved them all wrong. Skyline is now the 5th largest airline in the country, and we're still growing. But I never forgot what it was like to need just one person to believe in me and what I was building." Catherine pushed a thick envelope across the desk toward Jack. "This is a preliminary contract outlining the scope of work, payment terms, and timeline. Have your lawyer review it, and we can discuss any changes you'd like to make. I'd like to have a deal in place by the end of next week, assuming you're interested." Jack reached for the envelope with a slightly trembling hand. "I'm definitely interested, but I have to ask, is this because I gave up my seat? Because if so, would I have researched your company and prepared a contract worth millions if this were simply about a seat on a plane?" Catherine asked, her eyebrow raised. "No, Jack, the seat was what brought you to my attention, but this offer is based solely on merit. Your company is exactly what Skyline needs right now." She stood, signaling the end of the meeting. "Take the evening to think it over. Call me tomorrow with any questions. And Jack," her expression softened slightly, "make sure you're on the 8 p.m. flight back to Denver. I understand there's a science fair you can't miss." Jack stood, clutching the envelope like a lifeline. "How did you—" "Your sister called your phone while you were walking here. My assistant took the liberty of answering and explaining that you were in a meeting with me. Emma seemed quite relieved to know you had another opportunity in the works. She mentioned something about a volcano project." "Renewable energy sources, actually," Jack corrected automatically, still trying to process everything that had happened. "Even better," Catherine smiled, extending her hand. "I look forward to hearing from you tomorrow, Jack." As Jack Thompson left the towering Skyline headquarters, the evening sun cast long shadows between Manhattan's skyscrapers. The weight of the contract proposal in his hands felt almost unreal, a lifeline thrown when he'd been drowning. He hailed a taxi and directed the driver to his hotel, still trying to process the extraordinary turn of events. In his modest hotel room, Jack spread the contract documents across the bed. The scope was incredible: 7 properties across Denver, comprehensive eco-friendly renovations, and a timeline that would keep his team busy for at least 2 years. The advance payment alone would clear his company's debts and provide enough capital to rehire the workers he'd been forced to lay off. Jack pulled out his phone and called the one person who would understand what this meant. "Emma? It's me," he said when his sister answered. "Jack, are you okay? Some woman called from an airline saying you were in a meeting. I wasn't sure if it was legitimate or—" It was real, Jack interrupted. Emma, something incredible happened today. He explained the situation, the flight, giving up his seat, the failed meeting with Horizon, and then Catherine's unexpected offer. $20 million. Emma gasped. Jack, that's life-changing. I know. Jack ran a hand through his hair. I still can't believe it. I need to have our lawyer review the contract, but Emma, we're going to be okay. The business, the house, Lily's college fund, everything. There was a pause before Emma spoke again. Miranda would be so proud of you, Jack. Not because of the contract, but because you never stopped being the man she fell in love with, even when things were at their worst. Jack swallowed hard at the mention of his late wife. I hope so, he said quietly. Listen, can you tell Lily I'll be home for her science fair tomorrow? I'm on the 8 p.m. flight tonight. She'll be thrilled, Emma replied. She's been working on her project all day, making last-minute adjustments. You should see how excited she gets when she talks about solar panels and wind turbines. She's definitely your daughter. After hanging up, Jack reached for the hotel notepad and began making plans. With this contract, he could implement all the ideas he'd been forced to put on hold. The apprenticeship program, upgraded equipment, new hires in key positions. Thompson Construction wouldn't just survive, it would thrive. As he packed his bag for the evening flight, Jack noticed Catherine's business card on the nightstand. On impulse, he sent her a text message. Thank you for the opportunity. I'll have my lawyer review the contract right away, but I wanted you to know how much this means, not just to me, but to my entire team and my daughter. I won't let you down. Her reply came a few minutes later. I know you won't. Safe travels, Jack, and good luck at the science fair. The 8 p.m. flight to Denver was less crowded than the morning flight had been. Jack found himself in economy class. Again, but this time by choice. He'd saved the upgrades for when the contract was finalized. As the plane took off, carrying him back to a future suddenly bright with possibility, he couldn't help reflecting on how differently this day had turned out than he'd expected. One simple act of kindness, giving up his seat to a pregnant woman, had changed everything. Not because Catherine felt obligated to repay him, but because that moment had revealed something about his character that resonated with her own values. It was a reminder that in business, as in life, who you are matters just as much as what you can do. Jack arrived in Denver shortly after 10 p.m. Mountain Time. Despite the late hour, he texted his foreman Mike as soon as he landed. Need to meet with the entire team tomorrow afternoon. Big news, really big. The drive home from the airport took him through quiet suburban streets to the modest 3-bedroom house where he and Lily had continued living after Miranda's death. The porch light was on, and as Jack pulled into the driveway, he saw Emma waiting up for him in the living room window. You didn't have to stay up, Jack said as he entered, dropping his bag by the door. Emma handed him a cup of tea. Of course I did. I want to hear every detail about this miracle contract. Jack sank onto the couch, the exhaustion of the day finally catching up with him. How's Lily? Fast asleep. She wanted to wait up but conked out around 9. Her project is all set up in the garage. She's going to blow the judges away tomorrow. I can't wait to see it, Jack said, smiling. Where would we be without you, Em? Emma squeezed his shoulder. That's what family does. We show up. She paused. So, tell me more about Catherine Reynolds. What's she like? Impressive, Jack replied, after a moment's consideration. Confident, direct, perceptive, the kind of person who commands respect without having to demand it. He took a sip of tea. She mentioned that she had trouble getting investors when she was starting out because she was a woman. Now she runs one of the largest airlines in the country. And she's about to have a baby, Emma observed. Doing it all. Not alone, I don't. Well, think, Jack said, remembering the wedding ring on Catherine's finger, but definitely forging her own path. They talked for another hour, going over the details of the contract and what it would mean for the future. When Emma finally left for her own home, Jack checked on Lily before going to bed. His daughter was sound asleep, her science project notes spread across her desk, a model of a sustainable house with tiny solar panels and wind turbines positioned. Nearby, Jack gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Things are looking up, kiddo," he whispered. "Dad's got good news." The next morning was a flurry of activity. Jack woke Lily with pancakes, a special occasion breakfast, and helped her load her science project into the car. He couldn't tell her about the contract yet. He wanted to have everything in place first, but he made sure she knew how proud he was of her work on renewable energy. "Do you think I'll win, Dad?" Lily asked as they drove to her school. "I think you've done amazing work, and whatever happens, you should be proud," Jack replied diplomatically. "But between you and me, your project is the best I've ever seen." Lily beamed at him from the passenger seat, the gap in her front teeth visible in her wide smile. She had Miranda's eyes, thoughtful and bright, but Jack's determined chin. The school gymnasium was chaotic, with excited fifth graders setting up their projects. Jack helped Lily position her model house on the assigned table, then stepped back to let her arrange everything just the way she wanted it. The judges would be, "You coming through in an hour? I've got to go to the office for a bit, but I'll be back before the judging starts," Jack promised. "Miss Wilson knows to call me if you need anything before then." Lily nodded, already focused on making final adjustments to her display board. "Okay, Dad. Don't be late." "Not a chance," Jack assured her. The atmosphere at Thompson Construction's modest offices was subdued when Jack arrived. His remaining employees had been working under the shadow of potential closure for months, and it showed in their tired eyes and cautious greetings. Jack called everyone into the conference room. All 10 people who remained from what had once been a team of 35. "I know things have been tough," Jack began, looking around at the familiar faces. Mike, his foreman, leaned against the wall, arms crossed skeptically. Sophia, their young architect, sat with her sketchbook open, always ready to capture new ideas. Leo, the master carpenter, had sawdust on his shirt as usual. "Yesterday, I went to New York to meet with Horizon Developments," Jack continued. "That meeting didn't go as planned." A ripple of concern moved through the room. Mike's expression darkened, and Sophia's shoulders slumped slightly. "But something else happened," Jack said, unable to keep the smile from his face any longer. "Something better." He pulled out the contract summary Catherine had given him. "Skyline Airlines has offered us a $20 million contract to renovate 7 commercial properties right here in Denver." The room erupted in exclamations of disbelief and questions fired from all directions. Skyline? The airline? 20 million? All 7 buildings? How did this happen? Jack raised his hands for quiet. "It's a long story, involving a first-class seat and the airline's CEO. But the important thing is this: Thompson Construction isn't just going to survive. We're going to grow. I'll be calling everyone we had to lay off and offering them their jobs back. We'll be hiring new people too." Mike pushed away from the wall, his skepticism giving way to cautious optimism. "This is for real, Jack. No catches?" "Our lawyer is reviewing the contract now, but it looks solid," Jack confirmed. "Skyline wants eco-friendly renovations for all. Their new regional facilities, exactly the kind of work we specialize in." "When do we start?" Sophia asked, her pen already moving across the sketchbook. "If all goes well with the contract, within 2 weeks," Jack replied. "I've got a meeting with Catherine Reynolds, Skyline's CEO, tomorrow to go over some details." As the reality of their sudden change in fortune sank in, the mood in the room transformed. People who had been bracing for unemployment were now discussing logistics, timelines, and expansion plans. Jack felt a weight lifting from his shoulders with each excited conversation. "I need to head back to Lily's school for the science fair judging," Jack announced after they'd discussed the immediate next steps. "But I wanted you all to know right away. We made it through the storm." As he turned to leave, Mike caught his arm. "I never doubted you, boss," the foreman said gruffly. "Not once." Jack clasped his friend's shoulder. "That means more than you know." The school gymnasium had grown even more crowded by the time Jack returned. Parents and teachers milled around the displays, while the judges, 2 science teachers from the local high school and an engineer from a nearby tech company, made their way methodically from project to project. Jack spotted Lily, standing confidently beside her renewable energy house, explaining something to one of the judges. Her face was animated, her hands gesturing enthusiastically as she pointed out different features of her model. He stayed back, not wanting to interrupt, a surge of pride warming his chest as he watched his daughter shine. "Mr. Thompson," a voice at his elbow made him turn. It was Ms. Wilson, Lily's teacher. "I wanted to tell you how impressed I am with Lily's project. She's really gone above and beyond." "Thank you," Jack replied. "She's been passionate about renewable energy for a while now. I think she wants to follow in her mom's footsteps." Miranda was an environmental scientist. Miss Wilson nodded. "Lily mentions her mother often in class. She's very proud of her." She hesitated. "And of you. She tells everyone her dad is saving the planet one building at a time." Jack felt a lump form in his throat. "I'm trying," he said simply. The judging concluded, and the students gathered near the stage for the announcement of winners. Lily caught sight of Jack and waved excitedly. He gave her a thumbs up and mouthed, "You did great." When Lily's project was awarded first place, Jack wasn't surprised, but his heart swelled with pride all the same. She accepted the blue ribbon with a gracious smile, then ran to him, throwing her arms around his waist. "Did you see, Dad? I won!" "I knew you would," Jack said, hugging her tightly. "Your project was amazing. Can we call Aunt Emma to tell her?" Lily asked, bouncing on her toes. "Absolutely," Jack agreed. "And I have some good news to share with both of you, too." That evening, Jack treated Lily and Emma to dinner at their favorite pizza place to celebrate Lily's win and the Skyline contract. Over pepperoni and mushroom pizza, Jack explained the opportunity in terms Lily could understand. "So we're not going to have to move?" Lily asked, her eyes wide. "No, sweetheart, we're staying right where we are," Jack assured her. "And I'll be able to spend more time at home too, since all the projects are right here in Denver. And the nice pregnant lady from the airplane gave you this job because you were kind to her," Lily clarified, processing the story in her direct way. Jack smiled. "Not exactly. She offered me the job because she believes our company does good at work. But yes, we met because I gave her my seat on the plane." Lily nodded sagely. "See, Dad? Being nice does pay off." Jack exchanged an amused glance with Emma. "That's not why we're nice to people, Lily. We don't do it expecting something in return." "I know that," Lily said, rolling her eyes slightly. "But it's still cool when good things happen to good people." Out of the mouths of babes, Jack thought, marveling at his daughter's straightforward wisdom. The next day, Jack met Catherine at Skyline's newly acquired Denver office, a 1960s building with good bones but outdated systems and inefficient use of space. "Perfect for Thompson Construction's expertise." Catherine greeted him warmly, her presence just as commanding in Denver as it had been in New York. She was dressed more casually today, in a stylish maternity blouse and slacks, but the air of authority remained intact. "Congratulations to Lily on her science fair win," Catherine said as they walked through the building. "First place is quite an achievement." Jack raised an eyebrow. "How did you know about that?" Catherine smiled. "I have my sources. Actually, your office manager mentioned it when my assistant called to set up this meeting. She was quite excited about it." "The whole team is celebrating good news this week," Jack acknowledged. "I told them about the contract yesterday. You've given 15 people a new lease on life, Catherine. And you've given me exactly the construction team I need," Catherine countered. "This isn't charity, Jack. This is good business." They spent The next 2 hours touring the property, with Jack pointing out potential renovations and Catherine sharing her vision for the space. Their working styles complemented each other well. Jack was detail-oriented and practical, while Catherine thought in broader strokes, focused on the overall impact and functionality. "I think we're going to work well together," Catherine remarked as they concluded the tour in what would become the building's main lobby. "My board was skeptical when I told them I wanted to hire a smaller local firm rather than a national company, but they'll understand when they see your work." "We won't let you down," Jack promised. Catherine nodded, then winced slightly, pressing a hand to her side. "Are you okay?" Jack asked, concerned. "Just a particularly energetic kick," Catherine replied with a rueful smile. "This little one has been active today. My husband says she's practicing soccer." "Do you know it's a girl?" Jack asked. "Just a feeling," Catherine said. "We decided not to find out ahead of time." She checked her watch. "I should get going. I have a video call with our East Coast operations team in 20 minutes. As they walked toward the exit, Catherine paused. "Jack, there's an event next. Friday. A charity gala for Denver Children's Hospital. Skyline is a major sponsor, and I'd like you to attend. It would be a good opportunity to introduce you to some people who might be interested in Thompson Construction Services." "I'd be honored," Jack said. "Though I should warn you, I haven't worn a tuxedo since my wedding day." Catherine laughed. "Business attire is fine. The invitation will be sent to your office tomorrow." She extended her hand. "I'll see you there." As they shook hands, Jack was struck once again by how a chance encounter had changed the trajectory of his life. "Thank you again, Catherine, not just for the contract, but for believing in what we do. Sometimes all it takes is one person willing to take a chance," Catherine replied. "Someone did that for me once. I'm just paying it forward." The week that followed was a whirlwind of activity for Jack. The contract with Skyline was finalized, and the first payment arrived in Thompson Construction's account, enough to clear their debts and fund the initial phase of renovations. Jack called back every employee they'd been forced to lay off, and to his relief, most were eager to return. He also began interviewing for new positions. The Skyline project would require additional carpenters, electricians, and project managers. Jack was particularly excited about hiring 2 recent graduates from the local community college's Sustainable Construction program, the start of the apprenticeship initiative he'd dreamed of implementing. Lily noticed the change in her father immediately. The worry lines that had creased his forehead for months began to fade, and he was smiling more, even singing along to the radio as they drove to school in the mornings. One evening, she found him at the kitchen table, sketching plans for a treehouse. "What's that?" she asked, peering over his shoulder. "Just an idea," Jack replied. "I thought we might build it this summer, in the big oak in the backyard." "What do you think?" Lily's eyes widened. "Really? Can it have a rope ladder and windows and solar lights?" Jack laughed. "We can design it together. Your renewable energy expertise will come in handy." By Friday evening, Jack was actually looking forward to the charity gala. Emma had helped him select a new suit for the occasion, his first in years, and offered to watch Lily for the night. "You look handsome, Dad," Lily declared as he adjusted his tie in the hallway mirror. "Like a movie star." "A very budget-friendly movie star," Jack joked, but he had to admit the charcoal grey suit was a significant upgrade from his usual workwear. The gala was held at the Denver Art Museum, its distinctive architecture providing a dramatic backdrop for the event. As Jack handed his keys to the valet, he felt a momentary twinge of imposter syndrome. Just a week ago, he'd been on the verge of bankruptcy. Now he was attending a gala as the representative of a company with a $20 million contract. Inside, the museum's central hall had been transformed with elegant decorations and soft lighting. Waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres, while Denver's elite mingled and networked. Jack accepted a glass of sparkling water and scanned the room for Catherine. He spotted her near a dramatic modern sculpture, engaged in conversation with an older gentleman. Even at 8 months pregnant, Catherine cut an impressive figure in a midnight blue gown, her dark hair swept up in an elegant style. She caught Jack's eye and motioned for him to join them. "Jack, I'd like you to meet Robert Chambers, chairman of the Denver Business Alliance," Catherine said as Jack approached. "Robert, this is Jack Thompson of Thompson Construction, the firm handling our Denver renovations." The older man shook Jack's hand firmly. "So you're the man Catherine's been raving about. She tells me your company does exceptional work with eco-friendly retrofitting. We're passionate about sustainable construction," Jack confirmed. "It's good for the environment and good for the bottom line. Energy-efficient buildings save money in the long run." "That's exactly what I've been telling the Alliance members," Robert said with approval. "Perhaps you could speak at our next quarterly meeting. Many of our members own commercial properties that could benefit from your expertise." Before Jack could respond, a distinguished-looking man in his 50s approached, placing a gentle hand on Catherine's shoulder. "There you are," he said. "The hospital director is looking for you. Something about the donation announcement." "Jack, this is my husband, Dr. David Reynolds," Catherine introduced them. "David, this is Jack Thompson, the contractor I told you about." Dr. Reynolds smiled warmly, shaking Jack's hand. The first-class seat hero. Catherine was quite impressed with your kindness and even more impressed with your company's portfolio. A rare combination. "It wasn't," Jack began, but Catherine interrupted. "Don't let him downplay it, David. Not everyone would give up a first-class seat to a very pregnant woman they'd never met." She turned to Jack. "I need to speak with the hospital director, but please mingle. Robert will introduce you to some people who might be interested in Thompson Construction's services." As Catherine and her husband moved away, Robert clapped Jack on the shoulder. "Come on, young man. There are at least 5 people here who need to hear about your sustainable construction methods. The future of Thompson Construction is looking very bright indeed." Jack followed, reflecting on how drastically his circumstances had changed in just 1 week. From the brink of failure to promising new opportunities, all because he'd offered his seat to a pregnant woman on a flight to New York. As the evening progressed, Jack found himself engaged in one productive conversation after another. Property developers, business owners, and civic leaders all expressed interest in Thompson Construction's approach to sustainable renovation. By the end of the night, Jack had collected a dozen business cards and scheduled 3 follow-up meetings for the following week. Just before leaving, he sought out Catherine to thank her for the invitation. He found her seated in a quiet corner, looking slightly pale. "Are you all right?" Jack asked, concerned. Catherine managed a smile, though it seemed strained. "Just tired. It's been a long evening." David appeared at her side, his expression worried. "We should get you home," he said to Catherine before turning to Jack. "It was a pleasure to meet you, Jack. I'm sure we'll be seeing more of each other." "Likewise," Jack replied. "Catherine, thank you for everything. This evening has been incredibly productive." Catherine nodded. "I'm glad. We'll talk on Monday about the project timeline." She started to rise, then grimaced, one hand going to her abdomen. David's concern visibly deepened. "Catherine, I think we should go to the hospital." "It's probably just Braxton Hicks," Catherine protested, but allowed her husband to help her to her feet. "Nevertheless, I'd feel better having you." "Checked," David insisted gently. He glanced at Jack. "You'll have to excuse us." "Of course," Jack said quickly. "Is there anything I can do?" Catherine shook her head. "Everything's fine. Babies have their own schedules, that's all." But as David led her away, Jack noticed her, leaning heavily on her husband's arm. Driving home, Jack couldn't help worrying about Catherine. Despite her assurances, she had clearly been in discomfort. He sent a brief text. "Hope everything is okay." Let me know if you need anything." There was no immediate reply, which wasn't surprising if they had indeed gone to the hospital. Jack tried to focus on the positive outcomes of the evening, the connections he'd made, the potential new clients, the sudden revival of his company's prospects. But his thoughts kept returning to Catherine, the woman whose chance encounter had changed everything for him and Thompson Construction. When he arrived home, Jack found Emma and Lily watching a movie in the living room, both in pajamas with a half-empty bowl of popcorn between them. "How was the fancy party?" Lily asked, making room for him on the couch. "Surprisingly good," Jack admitted, loosening his tie. "I met a lot of interesting people who might want to work with our company." "Any movie stars?" Lily pressed, clearly hoping for a more glamorous report. Jack chuckled. "No, mostly business people and doctors, but the museum was beautiful." Emma studied his expression. "Something happened. What aren't you telling us?" Jack hesitated. Catherine, Ms. Reynolds, the CEO, wasn't feeling well. I think she might have gone into labor." "The baby's coming?" Lily perked up, suddenly more interested. "Is it a boy or a girl?" "They don't know yet," Jack explained. "They wanted to be surprised." As if on cue, Jack's phone chimed with a text message. It was from David Reynolds. "Catherine asked me to update you. She's in labor. Everything progressed normally, but earlier than expected. She says not to worry about Monday's meeting. Details to follow when we have them." Jack read the message aloud to Emma and Lily. "She's having her baby," Lily exclaimed. "Dad, we should send flowers or a teddy bear or something." "That's a lovely idea," Emma agreed. "Tomorrow we can pick something out together." Later that night, after Emma had gone home and Lily was in bed, Jack sat on his back porch, gazing up at the stars. The events of the past week seemed almost surreal in their improbability. How different things would have been if he hadn't given up his seat on that flight. If Catherine had never learned about Thompson Construction. If he'd had to tell his team that they were closing their doors. One small decision had created a ripple effect that transformed not just his life, but the lives of everyone connected to his business. Jack wasn't usually prone to philosophical reflections, but tonight he couldn't help wondering about the intricate web of choices and chances that shaped human lives. His phone chimed again. Another text from David Reynolds. "Catherine and baby, both doing well. Claire Elizabeth Reynolds, 6LBs 9 Oz, arrived at 11:42 p.m. Mother and daughter resting comfortably." Jack smiled at the news. A new life entering the world on the same night that his company had been given a new life. There was something poetic about that symmetry, a reminder that endings and beginnings were often intertwined in ways we couldn't foresee. "Welcome to the world, Claire Elizabeth," Jack murmured to the night sky. "Your mom is quite a remarkable woman." 3 months passed in a blur of activity for Jack Thompson. The skyline renovations were proceeding ahead of schedule, with 2 buildings already completed and a 3rd nearing its final phase. Thompson Construction had more than doubled in size, growing from 10 employees to 25, with plans to add 10 more positions by year's end. The company's reputation had spread quickly through Denver's business community, largely thanks to Catherine's endorsements and the impressive results of the Skyline projects. Jack had hired Sophia, his talented young architect, as creative director, giving her the freedom to implement innovative, sustainable designs that were attracting attention throughout the industry. On a crisp autumn morning, Jack stood with Catherine and her husband David in the lobby of Skyline's newly renovated headquarters, admiring the transformation. The once-dated 1960s building now featured an airy, light-filled entrance with living walls of native plants, reclaimed wood accents, and cutting-edge energy systems hidden behind sleek modern surfaces. "It exceeds all my expectations," Catherine said, bouncing baby Claire gently in her arms. At 3 months old, the infant had her mother's dark hair and alert, observant eyes. The board members were absolutely stunned during yesterday's tour. Your vision made it possible, Jack replied. The idea to preserve the mid-century elements while modernizing the functionality was inspired. David nodded in agreement. It's remarkable how you've balanced efficiency with aesthetics. I particularly appreciate the noise reduction features. They'll make a significant difference for employees. The best part, Catherine added, is that our energy consumption is already down 42% compared to the same month last year, and we're still fine-tuning the systems. Jack felt a surge of pride in what his team had accomplished. The sustainable renovation techniques they'd championed for years were proving their value on a larger scale than ever before. We've received 3 new inquiries just this week from companies who've seen the skyline buildings, Jack shared. Your recommendation carries a lot of weight in Denver. Catherine smiled. Good work deserves recognition. Speaking of which, how's Lily's school year going? Is she still excited about environmental science? More than ever, Jack replied, his expression softening at the mention of his daughter. Her teacher suggested we look into a special STEM program for middle school next year. Apparently her renewable energy project has sparked a real passion, like mother, like daughter, David observed. And father too, I suppose, considering your commitment to sustainable building. The conversation was interrupted by Catherine's assistant, who apologetically reminded her of an upcoming conference call. Catherine handed Claire to David, who cradled his daughter with practiced ease. Jack, walk with me to the elevator, Catherine requested. There's something I'd like to discuss. As they moved away from the lobby, Catherine's professional demeanor softened slightly. I wanted to thank you personally for everything you've done with these renovations. The Skyline board was skeptical about working with a smaller local firm, but the results have exceeded everyone's expectations. We're the ones who should be thanking you, Jack countered. This contract changed everything for us. That's actually what I wanted to discuss, Catherine said, pressing the elevator button. Skyline has just acquired 3 more properties in Colorado Springs, and we're looking at locations in Fort Collins and Boulder as well. We'd like Thompson Construction to handle all of these renovations under an expanded contract. Jack blinked in surprise. That would be fantastic. But are you sure? That's a significant expansion. I'm always sure about my business decisions, Jack, Catherine replied with a hint of amusement. Your company has proven it can deliver exceptional quality on time and under budget. Why would I look elsewhere? The elevator arrived with a soft chime, and Catherine stepped inside. Have your lawyer call mine tomorrow to discuss the details. We're looking at approximately $30 million for the additional properties. As the doors began to close, Catherine added, Oh, and Jack, Claire's christening is next month. David and I would like you, Emma, and Lily to attend. It's a small family gathering. Jack stood momentarily speechless as the elevator doors closed completely. $30 million, an invitation to a family event. In the space of 3 months, Thompson Construction had gone from the brink of bankruptcy to becoming Skyline's premier renovation partner. That evening, as Jack drove home, he took a detour past the site of his very first commercial project. A small office building he'd renovated 12 years ago when Thompson Construction was just getting started. The building still stood proudly, its energy-efficient windows and solar panels testaments to Jack's early commitment to sustainable construction. He remembered Miranda standing beside him at the building's reopening ceremony, pregnant with Lily, her face glowing with pride in what they'd accomplished together. This is just the beginning, she'd told him that day. You're going to change the way people think about construction in this city. Jack wished she could see how right she'd been. When he arrived home, Lily was waiting on the porch swing, a book about renewable energy open on her lap. Dad, you're early, she exclaimed, jumping up to greet him. Can we work on the treehouse plans? I have new ideas for the solar lighting system." Jack laughed, feeling lighter than he had in years. "Absolutely. And I have some news to share with you and Aunt Emma. Why don't you call her and see if she can come over for dinner?" Over pasta and garlic bread, Jack told Emma and Lily about the expanded contract with Skyline and the invitation to Claire's christening. $30 million? Emma gasped. "Jack, that's incredible. Does this mean I get to meet the baby?" Lily asked, more interested in Claire than in business discussions. "Yes, sweetheart. Catherine and David have invited all of us to the christening." Jack confirmed. "They must really consider you a friend," Emma observed. "A christening is usually just for family and very close friends." Jack nodded thoughtfully. "I think we've developed a genuine friendship beyond the business relationship. Catherine mentioned once that success means nothing if you can't share it with people who understand the journey. I think she values authenticity in her connections." "Well, I think it's wonderful," Emma declared. "You deserve good things, Jack." "Both of you do," she added, smiling at Lily. Later that night, after Lily had gone to bed, Jack sat on the back porch with a cup of tea, contemplating how dramatically his life had changed in just a few short months. From the brink of financial ruin to expanding his business beyond his wildest expectations. From worrying about keeping a roof over Lily's head to planning her educational future with confidence, all because he'd offered his seat to a pregnant woman on a flight. But it wasn't just that simple act of kindness that had transformed his circumstances. Jack realized it was what that moment had revealed about his character, his willingness to put others first, even when he was facing his own struggles. Catherine hadn't offered him the Skyline contract out of gratitude. She'd offered it because that brief interaction had shown her the kind of person he was, the kind of business he ran, and the values he lived by. Jack's phone chimed with a text message. It was from Catherine. "Board approved the expanded contract. Unanimously. Looking forward to continuing our partnership. Claire says hello." Well, she would if she could talk. Jack smiled and typed a reply. "Wonderful news. Looking forward to the new projects. Tell Claire that Lily can't wait to meet her." As he sent the message, Jack thought about how a single moment of human connection had created ripples that continued to expand outward, touching more lives than he could have imagined. His employees and their families, Catherine's company and its staff, even the environment itself benefited from this chance encounter between two people who recognized something valuable in each other. Sometimes the smallest gestures revealed the biggest truths about who we were and what mattered most. In a world that often seemed to reward selfishness, Jack had discovered that kindness could still open unexpected doors. Not because people owed you for your good deeds, but because genuine character attracted genuine opportunity. Jack looked up at the stars, thinking of Miranda and how much she would have loved this story. "You were right," he whispered to the night sky. "This was just the beginning. In the coming years, Thompson Construction would grow to become one of the most respected sustainable renovation firms in the western United States. Jack would establish the apprenticeship program he'd dreamed of, training dozens of young people in eco-friendly building techniques. Lily would follow in her mother's footsteps, eventually earning a degree in environmental engineering and joining her father's company to develop new sustainable technologies. And it all began with a simple choice: to give up a first-class seat to a pregnant woman on a crowded flight to New York, not knowing she owned the airline. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can change the course of our lives forever. 5. Years had passed since that fateful flight when Jack Thompson had given up his first-class seat to a pregnant Catherine Reynolds. Thompson Construction had grown from a struggling local company on the brink of bankruptcy to one of the premier sustainable renovation firms in the western United States, with offices in Denver, Colorado Springs, and now expanding into Salt Lake City. On a bright morning in June, Jack stood in the gleaming lobby of Thompson Construction's new headquarters. A formerly abandoned warehouse they had transformed into a showcase of sustainable architecture. Sunlight streamed through strategically placed skylights, illuminating the living wall of native plants that dominated the entrance. Solar panels covered the roof, while a state-of-the-art geothermal system handled the building's heating and cooling needs. "Dad, the reporters are here," Lily called, now a poised 15-year-old who bore a striking resemblance to her mother Miranda. She had grown tall for her age, with the same thoughtful eyes and determined chin that had always characterized Jack's features. Today was a milestone for Thompson Construction, the official announcement of their biggest project yet, and Lily had insisted on being present, despite it being a school day. Jack had relented, recognizing that these moments were educational in their own right. "Right on time," Jack nodded, straightening his tie. The days of his worn suits were long gone, replaced by tailored attire befitting the CEO of a rapidly growing company. Still, Jack had maintained his unpretentious style, preferring comfort and function over ostentation. The lobby doors opened, admitting a group of journalists and business reporters. Jack recognized faces from the Denver Business Journal, Sustainable, Construction Magazine, and even a crew from a national news network. Among them stood Catherine Reynolds, now chairman of Skyline Airlines, which had become the nation's fourth largest carrier under her leadership. At 43, Catherine had only grown more confident and commanding in her presence. Her dark hair was cut in a sleek, sophisticated style, and she moved with purpose as she greeted Jack warmly. "Quite a turnout," she remarked, surveying the assembled media. "They know a good story when they see one." "They're here because of Skyline's involvement," Jack replied. "Your company's commitment to carbon neutrality has made headlines nationwide." Catherine shook her head slightly. "They're here because Thompson Construction has revolutionized sustainable renovation in the commercial sector. Our partnership simply highlights what you've been doing all along." Before Jack could respond, Sophia, now Thompson Construction's chief design officer, approached to indicate that everything was ready for the press conference. Jack nodded and guided Catherine toward the small stage, set up at the far end of the lobby. "Lily, are you joining us?" Jack asked his daughter. "Front row," Lily replied with a grin, moving to take her seat among the journalists. Jack and Catherine took their positions behind the podium, flanked by large digital displays showing renderings of their ambitious new project. The room quieted as Jack began to speak. "Thank you all for joining us today. Thompson Construction and Skyline Airlines are proud to announce a groundbreaking initiative that will transform corporate responsibility in the aviation industry." Jack gestured to the displays, showing a sprawling complex of buildings. The Skyline Sustainability Campus will be the first carbon-negative corporate headquarters for any major airline in the United States. Using cutting-edge renewable energy systems, regenerative design principles, and innovative carbon capture technology, this campus will not only eliminate Skyline's corporate carbon footprint, but will actually remove an additional 15,000 tons of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere annually. The announcement triggered a flurry of camera flashes and hurried note-taking. Jack continued, detailing the technical innovations that would make this vision possible before introducing Catherine to address the business implications. When Skyline first partnered with Thompson Construction 5 years ago, we were simply looking for a reliable contractor to renovate our regional offices, Catherine began. What we found instead was a visionary company that has helped redefine what sustainable business can look like. She outlined Skyline's journey toward greater environmental responsibility, crediting Thompson Construction with inspiring many of their initiatives. This new campus represents an investment of $180 million. But the returns, both environmental and financial, will benefit our company, our community, and our planet for generations to come. As the press conference continued, Jack couldn't help reflecting on the extraordinary journey that had brought them to this moment. From nearly losing his business to now leading one of the most innovative construction companies in the country. From a desperate flight to New York to now standing alongside one of the most respected CEOs in the airline industry, announcing a project that would cement both their legacies. After the formal announcement, Jack and Catherine fielded questions from reporters. One journalist from the Business Journal raised her hand. "Mr. Thompson, Ms. Reynolds, there's been much speculation about the origins of your business partnership. Some have suggested it began with a chance encounter on a flight. Would you care to address those rumors?" Jack and Catherine exchanged amused glances. They had never publicly discussed the circumstances of their first meeting, preferring to keep that story private. "Let's just say that Skyline Airlines values acts of kindness and integrity," Catherine replied diplomatically, "and Thompson Construction exemplifies those qualities in everything they do." The response satisfied the journalist, who moved on to more technical questions about the project. As the press conference concluded, the attendees broke into smaller groups for follow-up discussions and interviews. Jack found himself momentarily alone, watching as Lily engaged animatedly with one of the sustainability reporters, clearly explaining some aspect of the project's renewable energy systems. "She's remarkable," Catherine said, appearing at his side. "Miranda would be incredibly proud." Jack nodded, feeling the familiar bittersweet pang that accompanied memories of his late wife. "She's the best of both of us. The science and environmental passion from Miranda, and maybe a bit of my stubbornness. And your integrity," Catherine added. "That girl has a strong moral compass, just like her father." They watched as Sophia joined Lily's conversation, the two of them working in tandem to explain a particularly innovative aspect of the design to the increasingly impressed reporter. "David and Claire send their regrets for missing today," Catherine said, referring to her husband and now 5-year-old daughter. Claire's kindergarten graduation was this morning, and she would never forgive her parents for missing it, not even for Daddy's big airplane buildings, as she calls them. Jack laughed. "Completely understandable. Please give them both my best." "Actually," Catherine continued, "Claire specifically asked me to invite Lily to her birthday party next month. They've become quite the friends since the science camp last summer." The unlikely friendship between the two girls had been an unexpected but welcome development. Despite their age difference, they shared a passion for science and nature that transcended the years between them. Claire looked up to Lily with adoration, while Lily had embraced her role as mentor with surprising maturity. "Lily would love that," Jack said. "She's been teaching Claire about wind turbines, apparently. Emma found them in the backyard last weekend with a homemade pinwheel generator." Catherine's expression softened at the mention of Jack's sister. "How is Emma? Still running the foundation?" The Thompson-Reynolds Family Foundation had been established 3 years earlier, focusing on environmental education and sustainable housing initiatives for low-income communities. Emma had left her teaching position to become its executive director, bringing her educational expertise to the organization's growing programs. "She's thriving," Jack confirmed. The foundation just awarded its 100th scholarship last month, full tuition for students pursuing degrees in environmental science or sustainable engineering. Their conversation was interrupted by Sophia, who approached with a tablet in and. "Sorry to interrupt, but the Salt Lake City team is on the line. They've encountered an unexpected structural issue with the airport terminal renovation and need your input." "Duty calls," Jack said to Catherine. "Will you be staying for the reception?" "Unfortunately, I have a board meeting at noon," Catherine replied. "But let's have dinner next week, all of us. David's been perfecting a new pasta recipe he's dying to show off." After Catherine's departure, the day continued in a whirlwind of activity. The announcement had generated exactly the buzz they'd hoped for, with social media already lighting up with reactions to the ambitious project. By late afternoon, Jack finally had a moment to retreat to his office, a thoughtfully designed space that balanced functionality with serenity. He had just settled behind his desk when Lily appeared in the doorway, her school backpack slung over. "On shoulder," Aunt Emma just texted. "She's stuck in traffic but should be here in 20 minutes, she reported. "Can I show you something while we wait?" "Of course," Jack replied, setting aside the contract he'd been reviewing. Lily placed a thick folder on his desk, carefully opening it to reveal detailed sketches and calculations. "It's my science fair project for next year. I know it's early, but I wanted to get a head start." Jack examined the materials, impressed by the sophistication of his daughter's work. The project proposed a modular green roof system specifically designed for existing commercial buildings, addressing common structural limitations that often prevented older buildings from supporting traditional green roof installations. "This is remarkable, Lily," Jack said sincerely. "Have you shown this to Sophia? She might have some insights on the load-bearing calculations." Lily nodded eagerly. "She helped me refine the attachment system, and Mr. Chen from engineering let me use the computer modeling software to test different configurations." Jack was struck by how naturally Lily had integrated herself into the company's operations. The employees had embraced her presence, recognizing in her the same passion and integrity that had guided Thompson Construction from its humble beginnings to its current success. "You know," Jack said thoughtfully, "this has commercial potential beyond a science project. Have you considered developing it as an actual product?" Lily's eyes widened. "Really? You think it could work in real buildings?" "With some refinement, absolutely," Jack confirmed. "Thompson Construction could develop a prototype for the innovation, a lab, test it on one of our properties, and if it performs as well as I think it might, we could include it in future renovations." The excitement on Lily's face reminded Jack powerfully of Miranda, who had approached every scientific challenge with the same enthusiastic determination. "Does that mean I'd be an actual inventor?" Lily asked, her voice a mix of disbelief and excitement. "You already are," Jack assured her. "This is original thinking, Lily. It solves a real problem in a novel way. That's what innovation is all about." The moment was interrupted by Jack's phone ringing. The display showed Mike's name, his loyal foreman from the early days, now Thompson, Construction's chief operations officer. "Sorry, I need to take this," Jack apologized to Lily, who waved understandingly and retreated to the small sitting area in his office to continue working on her project. "Mike, what's up?" Jack answered. "Just got word that we won the Portland contract," Mike reported, his voice carrying the same no-nonsense tone that had characterized him for years, despite his rise through the company ranks. "They were impressed with the presentation Sophia and the team put together. We beat out 3 national firms." "That's fantastic news," Jack replied, feeling the familiar satisfaction of hard-earned success. "The team deserves all the credit. Their innovation on the energy recapture system must have sealed the deal." After finishing the call, Jack found Lily deeply absorbed in refining her sketches. He took a moment to simply observe his daughter, marveling at the young woman she was becoming. At 15, she already showed the intellectual curiosity and ethical foundation that would serve her well in whatever path she chose. Jack felt immensely grateful that his business challenges 5 years ago hadn't derailed her future. Emma arrived shortly after, bringing with her the infectious energy that had made her such an effective leader for the foundation. At 40, Emma Thompson carried herself with confident purpose, her practical nature complemented by genuine warmth. "Sorry I'm late," she announced, sweeping into Jack's office. "The foundation board meeting ran long, and then I hit that construction on 6th Avenue. Ironically, that's one of our projects, Jack admitted with a smile. Sustainable street redesign for the city. Emma rolled her eyes good-naturedly. Well, next time, tell your crew that your sister has places to be. She turned to Lily. Ready for our dinner reservation? I made it at that new plant-based restaurant you've been wanting to try. As they prepared to leave, Jack's phone chimed. With a text message from Catherine. Congratulations on today's announcement. The business press is already calling it the most ambitious corporate sustainability project in decades. Claire says to tell Lily she's working on her windmill science for when they meet next. Jack smiled and showed the message to Lily, who beamed with pride. Maybe Claire will join Thompson Construction someday, Lily mused. We could be business partners, just like you and Miss Reynolds. The innocent observation struck Jack with unexpected force. He had never fully explained to Lily how close they had come to losing everything, how a single act of kindness on a flight had altered their trajectory so dramatically. Perhaps someday he would share the full story, but for now, he was content to let her believe that success came naturally from hard work and good intentions. That would be quite something, Jack agreed, gathering his things to join them for dinner. As they walked through the Thompson Construction headquarters, employees greeted them warmly. Jack noticed how many of these faces had been with him from the beginning. Mike, Sophia, Leo, and others who had stayed through the hardest times and now shared in the company's success. Outside, the early summer evening bathed Denver in golden light. Jack paused briefly to look back at the building that housed his thriving company. Its innovative design, a physical manifestation of the values he had always believed in: sustainability, integrity, and the power of human connection. 5 years ago, he had been a desperate man on a crowded flight, offering his first-class seat to a pregnant woman without any expectation of return. That simple gesture had revealed his character in a moment of personal crisis, creating an unexpected connection with someone who recognized and valued what they saw. "Dad, are you coming?" Lily called from a few steps ahead, where she and Emma waited patiently. "Right behind you," Jack replied, turning away from the building to join his family, grateful once again for the strange and wonderful ways that kindness could transform lives when we least expected it. 10 years had passed since the chance encounter on that flight to New York, a decade of transformation, growth, and unexpected friendship that had reshaped lives and businesses in ways no one could have predicted. The grand ballroom of the Denver Convention Center hummed with anticipation as over 500 guests in formal attire mingled before the start of the evening's event. Banners displaying the logos of Thompson Construction and Skyline Airlines adorned the elegantly decorated space, along with images of sustainable buildings and the words, "A decade of sustainable partnership," emblazoned above the stage. In a quiet room adjacent to the ballroom, Jack Thompson adjusted his bow tie in the mirror. At 48, his dark hair was now threaded with distinguished silver at the temples, and fine lines had formed at the corners of his eyes, evidence of both challenges overcome and much laughter shared over the years. "Need help with that?" asked a familiar voice. Jack turned to see Catherine Reynolds entering the room, elegant in a midnight blue evening gown. At 53, she carried herself with the same commanding presence that had characterized her when they first met, though her signature dark hair now featured its own subtle silver highlights that she had chosen not to conceal. "Still haven't mastered the art of formal wear," Jack admitted with a self-deprecating smile. "You'd think after 10 years of these events, I'd have figured it out." Catherine stepped forward to straighten his tie with practiced ease. "Some things never change. You're still more comfortable on a construction site than at a black tie gala." "Guilty as charged," Jack conceded, "though I have to admit, seeing what we've accomplished makes these events worthwhile." Catherine nodded in agreement, stepping back to appraise her handiwork. Perfect, and just in time. They're about to start seating everyone for dinner. The door opened again, admitting David Reynolds, distinguished in his tuxedo, and their daughter Claire, now a poised 15-year-old with her mother's confident bearing and her father's thoughtful demeanor. "Mom! Jack!" Claire exclaimed. "Lily's group just arrived. You should see her. She looks amazing." "I guess we should head out there," Jack said, feeling a flutter of paternal pride. "Is Emma already seated?" "Front table with Mike and Sophia," David confirmed. "She was reviewing her speech notes when we passed by." As they made their way toward the ballroom, Jack noticed Catherine slowing her pace slightly. "Everything okay?" he asked quietly. Catherine gave him a wry smile. "Just reflecting on how far we've come. 10 years ago, I was an extremely pregnant CEO taking a chance on a struggling construction company. Now look at us. Best business decision you ever made," Jack quipped. "One of the best personal decisions too," Catherine added more seriously. "Our family's friendship has been a gift I never expected." They entered the ballroom to applause as attendees recognized the guests of honor. Jack scanned the crowd and spotted Lily standing with a group of young adults, the first graduating class of the Thompson Reynolds Foundation Scholarship Program, now emerging environmental engineers and sustainable design professionals. At 20, Lily Thompson had blossomed into a poised young woman with her mother Miranda's scientific mind and her father's unwavering integrity. Currently a junior at Colorado State University studying environmental engineering, she had already co-patented 2 sustainable building technologies through Thompson Construction's Innovation Lab, including the modular green roof system she had first conceived as a science fair project 5 years earlier. Jack and Catherine made their way to the head table, greeting familiar faces, business associates, employees, and community leaders who had supported their vision over the years. As they took their seats, Jack found himself between Emma and Lily, who had hurried over to join them. "Nervous about your speech, Dad?" Lily asked, straightening the corsage on her elegant emerald gown. "Terrified," Jack admitted with a smile. "Public speaking will never be my strong suit." "Just speak from the heart," Emma advised, patting his hand. "No one knows this story better than you do." The evening's program began with a video presentation chronicling the remarkable 10-year partnership between Thompson Construction and Skyline Airlines. Images of renovated buildings gave way to footage of the groundbreaking Skyline Sustainability Campus, which had indeed fulfilled its promise of becoming the first carbon-negative airline headquarters in the country. The video highlighted community initiatives, educational programs, and the growing network of sustainable buildings that had transformed Denver's corporate landscape. Jack watched with a sense of wonder, still sometimes amazed by how far they had come. Thompson Construction had grown from a struggling local firm with 10 employees to an industry leader with offices in 7 western states and a workforce of over 300. Their innovative approach to sustainable renovation had earned national recognition, with Jack and his team regularly consulted on environmental policy and green building standards. Skyline Airlines had experienced equally impressive growth, expanding its routes and fleet while maintaining its commitment to becoming the most environmentally responsible carrier in the industry. Under Catherine's leadership, the airline had pioneered sustainable aviation practices that competitors now scrambled to emulate. But beyond the business successes, the video captured something more meaningful: the human connections that had developed over the decade. Footage showed the Thompson and Reynolds families at company picnics, charity events, and personal celebrations. There were clips of Lily and Claire growing up together, despite their age difference, united by their shared passion for science and sustainability. The Foundation's scholarship recipients appeared, speaking about how the opportunity had changed their lives and launched their careers. When the video concluded, Emma rose to take the podium as the evening's MC. At 50, she had become a respected figure in Denver's nonprofit community, guiding the Thompson Reynolds Foundation to national prominence. 10 years ago, Emma began, a chance encounter between two strangers on a flight set in motion, a partnership that would transform not only their businesses, but our entire community's approach to sustainable development. She introduced a series of speakers, civic leaders, environmental experts, and beneficiaries of the Foundation's programs, each sharing perspectives on the impact of the Thompson Skyline partnership. Mike spoke about the evolution of construction practices. Sophia discussed the architectural innovations they had pioneered. A young engineer who had received one of the Foundation's first scholarships described how the opportunity had changed the trajectory of her life. Finally, it was time for the main addresses. Catherine took the stage first, commanding the room's attention with her characteristic poise. "When I became CEO of Skyline Airlines 15 years ago," she began, "I had a clear vision for growing our business. What I didn't anticipate was how a brief interaction with a stranger would eventually redefine that vision entirely." She spoke eloquently about the business case for sustainability, the competitive advantage of ethical leadership, and the profound satisfaction of building something that benefited the community and the planet. Then her tone softened slightly. "But the numbers and achievements only tell part of the story. What can't be quantified is the value of finding partners who share your values, who demonstrate through their actions, not just their words, what integrity looks like in practice." Catherine glanced toward Jack. "When a certain contractor gave up his first-class seat to a very pregnant woman he'd never met, he had no idea she owned the airline. He certainly couldn't have known that this small gesture would lead to a business partnership, or that our families would become so deeply connected over the years." She paused, her expression thoughtful. "That's the thing about kindness. You never know how far its ripples will spread or who they might reach. Sometimes those ripples become waves that can transform entire communities." After Catherine concluded to enthusiastic applause, Jack approached the podium, taking a deep breath to calm his nerves. Despite years of these events, he still preferred intimate conversations to formal speeches. 10 years ago, Jack began, "I was on the verge of losing everything. My construction company was failing, and I was desperate to secure one last contract that might save it." He smiled slightly. "I spent my last available funds on a first-class ticket to New York, hoping the extra comfort would help me prepare for the most important pitch of my career." Jack recounted the story of that flight, offering his seat to Catherine, the failed meeting with Horizon Developments, and the unexpected opportunity that followed. He spoke about the growth of Thompson Construction, the innovations they had developed, and the pride he felt in creating a business that honored his late wife Miranda's environmental values. "But what I've come to realize," Jack continued, his voice growing more reflective, "is that the true measure of success isn't found in balance sheets or building portfolios. It's found in the lives we touch, the community we strengthen, and the legacy we create for those who come after us." He gestured toward Lily and the group of scholarship recipients seated nearby. "Look at these young people, the next generation of environmental engineers and sustainable designers. They'll take what we've started and carry it forward, solving challenges we haven't even anticipated yet." Jack turned toward Catherine. "A decade ago, you took a chance on a struggling contractor because you recognized something in him beyond his business difficulties. You saw value in character and commitment when others only saw risk. That kind of vision, seeing potential where others see problems, is what has made our partnership so successful." As Jack concluded his remarks, the ballroom erupted in a standing ovation. He made his way back to the table, where Lily embraced him warmly. "That was perfect, Dad," she whispered. The formal program gave way to dinner and then dancing. Jack found himself momentarily alone, watching from the sidelines as Emma chatted with David and Lily and Claire laughed together on the dance floor. "Not joining the festivities?" Catherine asked, appearing beside him with 2 glasses of champagne, offering one to Jack. "Just taking it all in," he replied, accepting the glass. "Nights like this, they make you reflect." "Indeed they do," Catherine agreed. "I was just thinking about how different things might have been if you hadn't been on that particular flight, or if you decided to keep your comfortable seat." Jack smiled. "Or if you hadn't been running late for your flight. So many little coincidences had to align." "I don't know if I believe in coincidence anymore," Catherine mused. "Some connections seem meant to happen, don't they? As if the universe conspires to put the right people in each other's paths at exactly the moment they need to meet." "Miranda used to say something similar," Jack recalled, his expression softening at the memory of his late wife. "She believed that kindness was like a homing beacon. It drew the right people and opportunities toward you." "Wise woman," Catherine nodded. "I wish I could have known her." "She would have liked you," Jack said with certainty. "Strong, direct, and unwilling to accept anything less than excellent." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the celebration unfold around them. So many people whose lives had been touched by their partnership, employees who had grown with their companies, scholarship recipients launching promising careers, community members benefiting from their philanthropic initiatives. "I had an interesting call yesterday," Catherine said eventually. "The governor's office reached out about a new state commission on sustainable infrastructure. They want representatives from both private industry and the academic sector who understand the practical challenges of implementing green building practices at scale." Jack raised an eyebrow. "And?" "I nominated you for the industry seat," Catherine replied, "and suggested Lily for the student representative position." The governor was quite enthusiastic about both recommendations. A state commission. Jack considered the idea. "That's a significant commitment." "It's the next logical step," Catherine pointed out. "We've proven these approaches work in the private sector. Now it's time to help shape policy that can extend these practices more broadly." Before Jack could respond, they were interrupted by Claire, who approached with barely contained excitement. "Mom, Jack, Lily just told me she's been accepted for the International Sustainable Design Program in Copenhagen next semester." "Isn't that amazing?" "That's wonderful news," Catherine replied, smiling at her daughter's enthusiasm. Jack felt a complex mixture of pride and wistfulness. The Copenhagen program was incredibly prestigious. Only 12 students worldwide were selected each year. It was a tremendous opportunity for Lily, though the thought of her being so far away for 6 months tugged at his heart. As if reading his thoughts, Catherine added quietly, "She'll be amazing, Jack. And Copenhagen is just a flight away." The party continued well into the night, a fitting celebration of 10 years of partnership and progress. As the event finally wound down, the core group, Jack, Lily, Emma, Catherine, David, and Claire, gathered in a quiet corner of the nearly empty ballroom. "I'd call that a success," Emma declared, slipping off her high heels with a sigh of relief. "Definitely," Lily agreed, "though I still can't believe Dad actually danced in public." "Desperate times call for desperate measures," Jack deadpanned. "The foundation raised over $2 million tonight. That's worth a few awkward dance moves." "Speaking of the foundation," David said, "Catherine and I have been discussing a new initiative we'd like your input on, Jack. We're thinking about expanding the scholarship program to include trade school pathways for sustainable construction skills." Jack nodded enthusiastically. "That's something we've needed for years. The industry has a critical shortage of skilled tradespeople trained in green building techniques." As they continued discussing possibilities, Jack was struck by how naturally Their families had integrated over the years, personal and professional boundaries blurring into a relationship that defied simple categorization. Partners, certainly. Friends, absolutely. But something more too. A chosen family bonded by shared values and mutual respect. Later that night, as Jack drove a sleepy Lily home through the quiet Denver streets, she broke a comfortable silence. "Dad, do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't given up your seat that day?" Jack glanced at his daughter, surprised by the question. "Sometimes," he admitted. "Though it's hard to imagine our lives any other way now." "I've been thinking about it," Lily continued thoughtfully. "It wasn't really about the seat, was it? It was about who you are, the kind of person who thinks of others, even when you're facing your own problems." She paused. "I'm really proud. That's my inheritance, not the company or the success, but that example." Jack felt his throat tighten with emotion. "That means more than you know, Lily." When they arrived home, Jack found himself unable to sleep despite the late hour and the day's excitement. He made a cup of tea and stepped out onto the back porch, gazing up at the stars as he often did when he needed to think. The custom-built home they now lived in was a far cry from the modest house they had nearly lost a decade ago. Designed by Sophia as a showcase of sustainable residential architecture, it featured cutting-edge energy systems, many of which had been developed through Thompson Construction's Innovation Lab. Yet for all its modern amenities, Jack had insisted on keeping this simple back porch, a place to sit quietly and contemplate the night sky, just as he had done in their old home during the most difficult days after Miranda's death. 10 years. A decade of unexpected friendship, remarkable growth, and meaningful impact on their community. All stemming from a moment of kindness on a crowded flight, a simple choice that revealed character in action. Jack thought about Lily's upcoming semester in Copenhagen, about the state commission Catherine had mentioned, about the future of Thompson Construction and the foundation that bore their names. The path ahead was full of new challenges and opportunities, just as the past decade had been. As he sipped his tea and watched the stars, Jack felt a profound sense of gratitude for the strange and wonderful ways life unfolded. How small acts of kindness could create ripples that eventually transformed into waves of positive change, touching countless lives along the way. Sometimes it seemed the universe did indeed conspire to put the right people in each other's paths at exactly the moment they needed to meet. 20 years had passed since that fateful flight. What had begun as a simple act of kindness had blossomed into 2 decades of partnership, friendship, and mutual growth that had transformed not just 2 families, but an entire industry's approach to sustainable development. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Thompson Tower, the striking sustainable skyscraper that now served as the headquarters for what had become Thompson Global, an international leader in sustainable architecture and construction. At 58, Jack Thompson moved with the same purposeful energy that had characterized him throughout his career, though his hair had turned completely silver and the lines around his eyes had deepened, marking decades of both challenges and laughter. Today was significant. The official announcement of his transition to chairman of the board, stepping back from daily operations to focus on strategic initiatives and mentorship. After 20 years of building Thompson Construction from a struggling local company to a global enterprise with offices on 4 continents, Jack was ready for this new chapter. "The press is gathering in the atrium," announced Sophia, now Chief Innovation Officer at Thompson Global. At 52, she had maintained her creative brilliance while developing into a formidable business leader in her own right. Lily's flight just landed. She should be here in about 30 minutes. "Perfect timing," Jack nodded, reviewing his notes one last time. "And the Reynolds family?" "Already here," Sophia confirmed. Catherine's catching up with the sustainability team about the Singapore project, and David and Claire are in the exhibition space. Jack made his way to the 50th floor, where a special exhibition had been installed to commemorate the evolution of sustainable design over the past 2 decades. The space showcased models, diagrams, and interactive displays, highlighting key innovations developed through the Thomson-Reynolds partnership. He found David Reynolds examining a display about carbon-negative building materials. At 68, David had retired from medical practice 5 years earlier, but remained actively involved in the Thomson-Reynolds Foundation's health initiatives. "Jack," David greeted him warmly. "Quite a day for you. How are you feeling about the transition?" "Ready," Jack replied honestly. 20 years is a good run. Time to let the next generation take the lead." "Speaking of which," David gestured toward Claire, who stood across the room explaining a technical display to a group of visiting engineering students. At 35, Claire Reynolds had grown into a formidable executive in her own right. After earning dual degrees in environmental science and business administration, she had risen through the ranks at Skyline Airlines, currently serving as Chief Sustainability Officer. Her innovative programs had positioned Skyline as the world's first carbon-neutral international airline, an achievement that had revolutionized industry standards. "She's in her element," Jack observed with admiration. "Catherine must be proud beyond words," David confirmed, "though no prouder than you must be of Lily." Jack nodded, a smile spreading across his face at the mention of his daughter. At 40, Lily Thompson had become one of the most respected figures in sustainable engineering worldwide. After her semester in Copenhagen had expanded into a full degree in program, she had spent a decade working with international organizations to implement green building standards in developing countries. 3 years ago, she had returned to Denver to lead Thomson Global's research division, spearheading innovations that continued to push the boundaries of what was possible in sustainable construction. "Have you told her about your other announcement?" David asked quietly. "Not yet," Jack admitted. "I wanted to do that in person." Their conversation was interrupted by Catherine's arrival. At 63, she remained an imposing presence, though she had transitioned to executive chairwoman of Skyline 5 years earlier, handing day-to-day operations to a carefully selected successor. While focusing on long-term strategy and industry leadership, the aviation contingent is here in force, she announced. Board members from 3 continents. They're quite eager to hear about the next phase of our partnership. The 3 old friends moved together toward the expansive windows, looking out over Denver's transformed skyline. The city had become a global model for sustainable urban development, due in no small part to the influence of Thomson construction methods and Skyline's corporate leadership. 20 years, Catherine mused. Who could have imagined where that first meeting would lead? "Certainly not me," Jack chuckled. "I was just hoping to keep my small company afloat for another month. And I was just hoping to get through a cross-country flight without going into labor," Catherine added with a smile. The moment was interrupted by a staff member informing them that Lily had arrived, and the press conference would begin in 15 minutes. They made their way to the ground floor atrium, an architectural marvel of sustainable design, featuring a living wall that stretched 50 feet high, integrated water reclamation systems, and innovative natural lighting solutions. Lily was waiting, near the podium, engaged in animated conversation with Emma, who at 60 continued to guide the Thomson-Reynolds Foundation with wisdom and compassion. At her side stood Michael Thompson, Jack's 18-year-old grandson, a thoughtful young man with his mother's intelligence and a quiet determination reminiscent of Jack himself. "Dad!" Lily embraced Jack warmly. "Sorry for cutting it so close. The climate summit in Geneva ran long." "You're right on time," Jack assured her, turning to embrace his grandson. "Michael, how was the university tour?" "Colorado State has an impressive sustainable engineering program," Michael replied thoughtfully. but I'm still considering MIT and the Swiss Federal Institute. Their joint degree with the Copenhagen program is intriguing. Jack exchanged a meaningful glance with Lily. Her son had inherited the family's passion for environmental innovation, representing the third generation to carry forward the legacy that had begun with a simple act of kindness on a flight 2. Decades earlier, the press conference was a significant event, drawing media from around the world. Jack took his place at the podium, looking out at the assembled journalists, business leaders, and team members who had gathered for the announcement. 20 years ago, Jack began, I gave up my first-class seat to a pregnant woman on a flight to New York, not knowing she owned the airline. He paused as appreciative laughter rippled through the audience. That chance encounter with Catherine Reynolds led to a partnership that has transformed not just our companies, but our understanding of what's possible when business prioritizes both profit and planetary health. Jack outlined the key milestones of their journey, from the initial renovation projects in Denver to the development of groundbreaking sustainable technologies, the expansion of both companies, and the establishment of the Thomson Reynolds Foundation, which had now provided educational opportunities to over 5,000 students worldwide. Today marks a new chapter for Thomson Global, Jack continued. I'm stepping back from daily operations to assume the role of chairman, focusing on strategic initiatives and mentorship. He gestured toward Lily, Dr. Lily Thompson, who has led our research division to unprecedented innovations over the past 3 years, will be assuming the role of Chief Executive Officer, guiding Thomson Global into its next phase of growth and impact. Applause filled the atrium as Lily stepped forward to join her father at the podium. Jack felt a surge of pride as he watched his daughter address the gathering with confidence and vision, outlining her plans to expand Thomson Global's focus on climate-adaptive architecture and carbon-sequestering building materials. But that's not the only announcement we have today, Jack said when Lily concluded. For 20 years, Thomson and Skyline have worked in parallel, occasionally intersecting but maintaining distinct corporate identities. Today, we're formalizing a deeper integration of our sustainability initiatives. He gestured for Catherine to join them at the podium. The Thomson Reynolds Sustainable Innovation Alliance will unite our research teams, combining Thomson's expertise in construction technology with Skyline's advancements in sustainable transportation systems. Together, we'll tackle some of the most pressing environmental challenges facing our cities and our planet. Catherine stepped forward to explain the structure of the new alliance, which would operate as an independent entity, jointly funded by both companies and the foundation. Claire Reynolds will serve as executive director, she announced, inviting her daughter to join them. Her background in both environmental science and corporate sustainability makes her uniquely qualified to bridge these worlds. As Claire outlined the Alliance's initial projects, including climate-resilient infrastructure for vulnerable coastal cities and carbon-neutral transportation hubs, Jack found himself reflecting on the extraordinary journey that had brought them to this moment. From a desperate contractor and a pregnant CEO to the architects of a global movement towards sustainable business practices. From strangers on a flight to extended family united by shared values and mutual respect. Following the press conference, the intimate group, Jack, Lily, Michael, Emma, Catherine, David and Claire, retreated to Jack's office for a private moment before the evening's gala celebration. I think that went well, Jack said, loosening his tie slightly as he settled into his chair. The press seemed genuinely interested in the alliance concept. The technical questions were impressively informed, Claire agreed. The industry has come a long way since we started this journey. Speaking of journeys, Catherine said, I have something for you, Jack. She handed him a small box wrapped in simple blue paper, a small token for today's milestone. Jack opened it carefully to find a first-class airplane ticket, not a modern electronic version, but an old-fashioned paper ticket like the ones used 20 years earlier. "I had it recreated from our archives," Catherine explained. "Flight AA 1842. To New York LaGuardia, first-class seat 1A, the seat you gave up that day." Jack ran his fingers over the ticket, memories flooding back of that pivotal moment, how desperate he had felt boarding that flight, how uncertain the future had seemed, and how a simple choice had set in motion events that would transform everything. "I can't believe you found this information," Jack said, genuinely moved by the gesture. "Actually, I helped," Emma admitted. "We wanted something meaningful to mark the occasion." The conversation shifted to plans for the alliance, with Lily and Claire outlining their vision for its first initiatives. Michael contributed thoughtful questions about technical approaches, revealing the sharp mind that had made him a standout student despite his young age. As the discussion flowed around him, Jack found himself observing the interactions with a sense of profound gratitude. 3 generations now carried forward the values that had guided his business decisions from the beginning: integrity, sustainability, and genuine concern for human welfare. What had begun as a small construction company struggling to survive had evolved into a global enterprise, making a measurable positive impact on communities around the world. Later that evening, as the formal gala celebrating the new alliance and Jack's transition was in full swing, he found a quiet moment alone with Catherine on the terrace overlooking the city. The Denver skyline glittered against the night, many of its most distinctive, buildings bearing the mark of Thompson's sustainable designs. "Remember when we first toured that old skyline building 20 years ago?" Jack asked, gesturing toward a sleek structure in the distance, the original renovation that had launched their partnership. "You were 8 months pregnant and had no idea you'd go into labor that same night," Catherine laughed. "Claire has always had excellent timing. Born on the same day you saved your company, and I found the perfect construction partner." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. 2 old friends who had weathered business challenges, personal transitions, and profound growth together. "I never properly thanked you," Jack said finally, "not just for the contract, but for seeing something in me worth believing in when everyone else saw only risk." "You thanked me through 20 years of exemplary partnership," Catherine replied. "Besides, I should be thanking you. That seat on the plane meant more to my very pregnant self than you could possibly have known." "Even so," Jack persisted, "you took a chance on a failing company based on one interaction. That kind of insight, seeing character revealed in a small gesture, that's rare in business." "Perhaps it shouldn't be," Catherine mused. "Imagine a world where business decisions routinely considered character and values alongside balance sheets and risk assessments." "I'd like to think we've moved the needle in that direction," Jack said. "At least in our industry." They were joined by Lily and Claire, who had escaped the crowd for a breath of fresh air. The 2 women had maintained their close bond, despite their age difference, their relationship evolving from mentor-mentee to true friends and now to business partners in the new alliance. "There you are," Lily said. "Michael is dazzling the universities with his research on mycelium-based insulation. I think MIT's representative is ready to offer him admission on the spot." "Like his mother at that age," Jack said proudly. "Always ahead of the curve." As they talked, Jack noticed Emma approaching David, both carrying glasses of champagne for a private toast, away from the formal proceedings inside. "To 20 years of extraordinary partnership," Emma proposed, raising her glass. "And to 20 more of innovation and impact," David added. "To kindness rewarded," Catherine said softly, her eyes meeting Jack's with understanding. "And to unexpected blessings," Jack concluded. "The kind that come when you least expect them, often disguised as challenges or chance encounters." As they clinked glasses, Jack felt a profound sense of completion. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The alliance, launch, Lily's transition to CEO, Michael's university decision, and countless other developments. But tonight was for acknowledging the remarkable journey they had shared. Later that night, after the guests had departed and the family had gone their separate ways, Jack remained in his office, looking out at the city he had helped to transform. On his desk sat the framed replica of that long-ago airplane ticket, Seat 1A on flight AA 1842, a simple reminder of how life's most pivotal moments often came disguised as ordinary decisions. His phone chimed with a text message from Lily. Michael decided on the Copenhagen program, says he wants to follow in his mother's footsteps. Family tradition continues. Love you, Dad. So proud of today. Jack smiled, typing back, couldn't be prouder of both of you. The future of Thomson Global is in excellent hands. As he prepared to leave the office that had been the center of his professional life for so many years, Jack noticed a package on his assistant's desk with his name on it. It contained an advance copy of a business school case study titled The Thomson-Reynolds Partnership, How Sustainable Values Create Sustainable Value. The dedication page read, to Jack Thompson and Catherine Reynolds, whose chance encounter on a flight 20 years ago sparked a revolution in sustainable business practices and demonstrated that kindness, integrity, and environmental responsibility can be the foundation for extraordinary success. Jack closed the book, slipped it into his briefcase, and took one last look around the office that would be Lily's from tomorrow onward. The journey had come full circle. From a desperate contractor, giving up his seat to a pregnant CEO, to a global leader passing the torch to the next generation. 20 years of growth, innovation and friendship that had begun with one simple choice on a crowded flight. As he turned out the lights and closed the door behind him, Jack reflected that perhaps this was the greatest lesson of his career. The measure of true success wasn't found in buildings constructed or contracts secured, but in the legacy of values that would continue to shape lives and landscapes long after he stepped away. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness revealed the deepest truths about character, and sometimes, if you were fortunate, they changed not just a moment but a lifetime.